For more than a decade, FTI has strived to become the leader in the aftermarket performance transmission and converter industry. We've joined forces with McLeod Driveline Components under the leadership of Top Fuel Funny Car pilot Paul Lee, and now have a larger distribution network, more resources, and more power. Come see us in the pits and ask how you can join the FTI family. It's not cheating, it is the competitive edge.
WFO! It's time for an inside look at the most powerful motorsport on the planet. WFO Radio, NHRA Nitro. This is WFO Radio.
Hey everybody, WFO. We're back on the air. Joe Castello with you, and we're getting ready to talk to the three-time NHRA Camping World Series Funny Car champ, Ron Capps, going to be joining us. We're going to hear from Ron just seconds from now. Ron is down there in the ready room. So if you're a fan of the Napa team, if you're a fan of Ron, you're going to want to share the show. If you're a fan of NHRA drag racing, we're going to talk about the story behind the championship as Ron gets ready for PRI and the winter break. And we'll be back at it in 2023 real soon. Before we get to Ron, I just want to tell you about the people that allow me to go WFO. You already heard about the folks at FTI Performance Transmissions and Torque Converters. We'll be seeing them at PRI. Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology, booth number 1525. Going to have something very special going on there. PRI Trade Show, Total Seal. If you're redoing your engine, refreshing your engine for 2023, make sure to use Total Seal Piston Rings. They've got a great thing going on. Bernie's Speed Shop in Ocala, Florida. Over $5 million in inventory. Classic cars, buying, selling, frame-off restorations. They do it all. Bernie's, of course. And Phillips Connect, Phillips-Connect.com. Justin Ashley, what a great year. Smart trailer technology, great for everybody out there. Over the road. Later on in the show, I'll tell you about samtech.edu. I'll tell you about Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School, and I'll tell you about Marvin Rodax, coffeeandgrills.com. But right now, let's connect with the man who got it done. First-time team owner, first year as a team owner. It's like a mic drop moment. Ron Capps. What's up, Ron? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So like a year ago at this time, you know, you had all kinds of craziness going on. I think we did a pre-PRI interview, and you had things like ready to announce, but you couldn't announce. It was right. Floating around in the ether. People were discussing like what's happening, and some people knew, and you made it all real at PRI. 1 year later, U.S. Nationals winner and world champion for the third time.
Crazy year. And we joked about this, last year to win the world championship like we did, knowing I was going to go into trying to be a team owner. I couldn't even imagine. I mean, already that seemed like, to me, it was just something I couldn't even imagine was going to go as well as it did. And then, through all the trials and tribulations of what we've done throughout the year, and I say we, because my God, it's I'm like this much of it. In the race car, I've joked, but I really mean it. You in drag racing especially, you're as good as your race car. And Don Perdome always used to joke around. He had a little saying he'd pop out once in a while, and you can't win the Kentucky Derby riding a mule. And it's so true. You're as good as that race car is. And there's times you can maybe make it better in a certain way, but you can certainly screw up a run and a race as a driver. So it's just a matter of getting through the first part of the year with everything going on the track and off the track. But to fast forward and Indy to win the call out, first of all, in the fashion that we did, being able to knock out some of the best there is in the business, and then turn around the next day and finally win the U.S. Nationals the way we did and beat the cars that we did in the fashion that we did was another thing. But then you go further and through the countdown, and just the way it went all the way until Sunday was just I'll cherish it forever.
Yeah, amazing. Well, the entertainment value, you know where I'm coming from. I'm rooting for the sport. I want this thing to be so exciting because I look at the grandstands and I know that the finals were packed and we had many sold out races. I'm a big cheerleader for the sport, but also at the same time, there are a lot of people going to a lot of inferior entertainment, right? They just don't know about our deal and they haven't been out yet. It's just some amazing storylines throughout the year and you lived it. But let's go back to the beginning, right? I want to go back to the start of the season. You won 5 races this year, really pressure-packed moments, but behind the scenes, you were dealing with many different things that you had never dealt with before. All of those things that come with being the guy, the check writer, if you will. Talk about some of those challenges now that you've won back-to-back championships for the first time since a guy named John Force did it. That's a crazy stat in and of itself. It tells you about Funny Car, but this was not easy. I know you've alluded to it many times on the show, but there were moments where you were stressing a little bit, pulling your hair out, dealing with new stuff.
Yeah, just, I feel weird still talking about it because everybody that's gone through their own business or tried to do their own thing, they've all been through the same thing. So it's nothing new. And I don't mean to overhype it when I've been talked about, but I get asked about it all the time. So that's the reason I've alluded to it. So it's just, and Antron hit it on the head. I mean, it was January, mid-January, I was dealing with Don Schumacher and trying to make sure we had the right parts and pieces going into the new year and had Guido and John Medlin. But Guido he's been such a huge help throughout this process. Way more than just a crew chief. I can tell you, for everybody at home, he did what he did with that race car. And obviously he trained and got our team together, but he's done so much away all those years, worked with John Forces, of course, his wife, Kelly, being as good as she is behind the scenes. So you just take all of that. And Antron, when he said, look, we're going to be standing around later this year and we're going to laugh about how things are right now and how stressed you are right now. And he was right. I mean, we're laughing, but, I can't, if you would have told me in January, it would have gone as well as it's going to go. I would have laughed at you, but I have so much appreciation for what Wilkerson and Cruz and all these other guys, as well as the Colettas and Forces and Schumachers, but there's a lot going on. And then the biggest part, and Cruz brought it up a couple times, is putting the helmet on and trying to get that stuff out. And look, IndyCar, NASCAR, you've had all drivers and owners go through the same process. So it's nothing new. It's new for me.
Well, exactly. But I think it's, you couldn't have had a better start at it. And soon, maybe already, the things that were stressful will become less stressful as they tend to do. And
no, I thought so, Joe.
No.
Even this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Because look, I'm getting older, and this was one of the reasons, and I had this conversation with you before the announcement at PRI. You look around, and I've had a great career in the sport, but let's say 5 years from now, what's going to happen when there's an owner like a Coletta or a Force or Schumacher that they're looking, and I've been lucky enough to be paid to be a representative and a driver all these years. There's a lot of younger guys and older guys and girls that would bring money to that same seat. And people have made runs at my car throughout the years to bring money to get into the seats that I've been in. I know it. They did it at Don Perdome's and through Schumacher's. There's been lots of people that have said they were going to bring $1 million, $1.5 million to be in the same seat and take over my ride. So it's great that I've had the career I've had, but what happens 5 years from now? Now I'm not a hired driver. So, I mean, it's the best thing that ever could have happened because now I have a little bit better of a future in the sport. I've got a leg in on being an owner. If I ever want to get out of the seat, I love looking at the talent coming up and things like that. So the conversation you and I had last year was what's going to happen down the road. Now I feel better about, my future.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's the unfortunate reality of aging. Like, what am I going to do? What does my future hold? What will I do? You will become an owner. You will be successful, and you will prove that you are capable. And now it's like planting a tree, right? It's like it grows, and you got to keep it alive at first when it's young, but then it gets strong roots. And I'm just so excited for you. Everybody is out there checking in, saying congratulations to the champ. They're all sharing on YouTube and Twitter, the tweets that we popped out. So everybody sees this. 5, this guy says he was at 4 events and saw 3 of your wins. So that's pretty cool.
He needs to go to more next year.
There's no guarantee that you ever will see your favorite driver win anything. That's motorsports. It's tough. If I go to a bunch of Dolphin games, eventually I'll see them win, hopefully. By the way, your Niners beat my Dolphins pretty well yesterday. We let you off the hook, I actually think, but whatever. We're not there yet. You enjoyed it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I got you. 2 good teams. Like, I got to say, that was a big test for us. And since we're talking about other stuff, how about Antron Brown? What a statement. This guy goes down there to the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals and wins Pro 275, a drag radial race, in his first ever attempt start. That's pretty crazy.
That was fun to watch. I watched every round, every part of it. I was texting back and forth with Loans. Crazy, but not surprising, right? Antron, that car was so consistent. He made it look I've never been in one. I'd love to try one. I don't think I'm going to do it now. It'd be like getting asked to go do Dancing with the Stars. Why would you go as a race car driver and do that after Helio Castroneves went and won the whole shebang, right? You're never going to be the guy that did it. And Antron just proved how good he is at anything. So that was fun to watch. But what a race car they gave him. What a job he did in the car. Just consistent. And, God, that was fun to watch.
Well, really insanity. When Tony Stewart got in the A Fuel car and went to the final round, there was all this debate about, like, if he wins his first race, does that mean that this is easy? What does it mean? What is it? And
yeah.
Right.
It sort of does. And Jay Payne's, Shelly and Jay's daughter, she's been in the sport forever. We watched her grow up, literally. And so it was like they were going to the final round. I'm like, I would love to see Tony win, but my God, she has been awesome to watch grow up, and here's her chance. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it was almost better that Tony didn't win his first time out.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, Cap said that, not me, just so you know. But for Antron, it's definitely great. And a suspended car, like, hey, let's get in this. And he wins amazing. Now, he did have Jamie Miller and Manny Pachinga, and these guys are, they know what they're doing. But amazing stuff. I like when drivers such as yourself go off to other disciplines of racing, different classes of racing, and showcase their talent and ability. And Antron did exactly that. Let's talk about the season, though. All right, because runner-up at Pomona, that was big. You said that many times. You lost to Robert. You guys battled all season long. I just kind of went through the race.
Won the pole, number 1 qualifier, first race. Like
don't shortchange the drivers on their stats, all you kids out there. They remember, even if you don't. I
remember the whole shots and the losses way more, though. Believe me.
I'm sure. But that calmed you, right? Like, oh, good. After all this, we're still fast. We're still who we think we are, the champs.
Yeah. Well, that was the important thing in the offseason. Through the January I talked about, the important thing was I didn't care what, and Napa Auto Parts and Catherine and Marty, these girls that I have the luxury of having in my corner at Napa Auto Parts now. The important part was, no matter what was going on around our hospitality and all this stuff, is that we had the race cars, the personnel, and that was the first and foremost thing that I talked to you about at PRI, is when we secured Guido and Medellin and that team, and we had the race cars from the previous year and the equipment, the same cylinder heads and all that. That was key to me. I grew up in the sport working on them. I understand. I was a crew member before I drove, so I know that's the most important part. You can only go so long on all your marketing, your tweeting, and your Instagram and all the social media stuff away from the racetrack. You got to win on the track. Eventually, you have to have a good product on the racetrack. So that was the key. And when we had the team, the parts, all the DSR stuff that we won the championship the year before, the same chassis, all that was, so I wasn't surprised in the fact that we did well, but number 1 qualifier, we just took off and then went to the final round. And a little bit of me was like, oh, now what do we do? That's a heck of a way to start. Now, how do we sustain that? Which obviously we did throughout the year, but just, we left there Monday morning from Pomona and I was walking on clouds.
Amazing. Well, and you knew you had things coming, and we don't like to make a big deal that there are things that you can't tell everybody, right? Like things that are coming down the road. Like who knows what you're going to talk about at PRI in a few days. Most people will watch this interview in the future and PRI will have already happened. But like if there's going to be an announcement at PRI, I can't talk to Ron about it right now because there's a rollout, there's a plan, there are things happening. And that was the case with the announcement about your manufacturer switch to Toyota. And there was a lot that went into that. And we've documented, the way some fans reacted. I feel like you got it less bad than maybe some others in the past, but you'd have to tell me. But the bottom line is they wanted you and they made you a cornerstone of their deal. And that was happening. And so just another layer of transformation to your team early on in the season.
Well, one clarification, and I get a lot of stuff on social media. Not that they didn't want me, but they didn't come after me. They didn't come buy a world championship car from last year. I went to them when I knew I was going to become an owner and I knew that I wasn't going to have the support of my long-term manufacturer from previous. Paul Dolezal is a guy that I had approached many years ago, Toyota, when I had teammates in NASCAR and so forth. So I went to them, and Paul Mecca, my team manager, and I, that was first and foremost. I've been around Antron Brown. I've been around my old Napa teammates. I've been around JR, Todd, and Alexis, and I've seen what they have done. So I wanted to be a part of that if I could, and especially being a first team owner, being around Don Prudhomme all those years and Don Schumacher. But I knew the manufacturer was huge to have that rock underneath you, that base. And so I went after them. They didn't come looking for me. So the fact that the morning before you and I did the announcement at PRI, which was incredible, I could not believe when we looked out from that stage, how many people had came to that area to see what the announcement was. That morning, I got the phone call back because it wasn't going to happen. They didn't have the bodies to get JR, Todd, and Alexis's team to make sure they took care of their current team funny cars. So when I got the phone call from Paul Dolezal and Brent and all the guys at Toyota that morning, it was emotional. I said it before. I mean, I'm not lying. When I broke down, when I knew that they were going to come on board, they just couldn't do it. And then we had to make the announcement that day that we were going to go out and Napa was going to join me as a team owner. But then I had to not say anything until we debuted it at Charlotte 4-wide. So that was tough to do as well. We had a photo shoot in Vegas, the top end of the track on a Thursday. We had security keeping people away, and the car was all done. And we did it with JR and Alexis, and that was cool, but it was hard to keep a secret.
It was fun to see you try to keep a secret. It was fun to watch everybody and, like little stuff. And I don't want to tip up. First of all, it's WFO. I want to tell everybody everything. Right. But the fire suit with like the patch covering and like when the sun hits it just right, it's kind of, you can see right through there. There were a lot of fun little moments where you almost gave it up.
We tried. Hey, we tried everything. I mean, you had to have awnings made right at the beginning of the year. Fans don't understand all the stuff that go through in the off season. They think our off season's kickback, and it's busier than the normal season. Believe me, photo shoots and commercials and everything that you do, but getting stuff done. I never understood exactly what went behind the scenes. So those little things to hide. We even had the awning done up, and we had to keep that covered. So it was crazy.
Amazing stuff. Jim Park says Dr. Don having a hard card in 2022 was instrumental in the championship process. But he's not the only person. Somebody else told me, and I forget who it was. It was a driver. It was Hagan. Hagan said, yeah, when cousin Donnie shows up, I feel like leaving because I know Caps is going to win.
It's not always been that case. I've always been a little hungover when he shows up, but most of the time. But yeah, he had a good record this year. Boy, him and Bill came out to Indy and drove the motorhome out together, and we ended up winning everything in Indy finally. So yeah, maybe Dr. Donnie's got something there, and he will get a hard card. There's no not having Donnie at the starting line. Trust me.
Oh yeah, no, he brings he's a cheerleader. Is really what he is. He brings a cheerleader, and in a positive masculine way, of course. Questions for Ron. You can put them up in the chat section. I see some of them populating up, but I want to kind of go through this season. So you got your first win as a team owner, but then you got your first win with Toyota. Vegas at 4-wide was the win as a team owner, but Bristol in Thunder Valley over Tim Wilkerson. Now, like the new program is christened with a victory at a track that you have had such great success at.
Yeah. And again, one of those days, there's almost every Bristol win has been just crazy. So we blew it up big and exploded and ruined one of our brand new Toyota bodies the first round, big time explosion. It came back. We beat Robert Height that day. There was no easy runs. Not that there ever really is, but I mean, it was a murderer's row. And those are those days. You just, to get that first win for Toyota, have everybody there was huge. I felt a little bit bad that JR and Alexis couldn't have gotten the first win for the Supra body, but that was huge for us and felt so good. And that's a tricky track. It's a tough track. It's a bumpy track. So to prove that the Toyota Supra, all the wind tunnel work by Slugger and all that really came to fruition at that racetrack.
Let's give some credit to, you mentioned Coletta Motorsports. They did so much behind the scenes with the development and testing, like countless testing that we didn't know about. And I spoke with Slugger and we just talked a little bit about that it was a team effort that was beyond any one team. It was a huge effort, but that they were in many ways part of it. But that's the deal, right? Only one person can win. Only one person can be the first. Only one person can win a championship, and everyone else is left to feel a little heartbroken one way or another, unfortunately, but that's drag racing.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was uncomfortable for them as well. I'm friends with Alexis and JR, and Dale Worsham, I consider one of my best friends out there. I'm sure it was not peachy having somebody new come in and then a car running well after all the hard work they did. I think I was lucky to have those people as my teammates. Chad Head and I go back a long way, and I think the world of him and Coletta and that whole group. So, yeah, it's a weird thing. This whole, I've joked about it. I've been part of multi-car teams pretty much my whole career. Don Perdome's, I joined with Larry Dixon, and TJ joined us, the two Skoll cars, and then Larry Dixon. And then at Don Schumacher's, upwards of, 10 at one time, counting, the pro stock and bikes and all that, but always having teammates to race against. So it's something I'm accustomed to. Not so many people are so easy at adapting to that. It's a tough thing to have a teammate with the same equipment and personalities and all that. So I can't thank them enough for what they helped with. I tried to make it as easy as I could. It wasn't always that way. And I maybe messed up a couple times where I didn't do things, I think, the right way. But with that being said, they still are huge helps. Chad Head and the Coletta group, they are the Toyota people that really have been a huge amount of help. And Dale Worsham opened up a lot of his mind to Guido and Guido to Dell as well. So all the crew chiefs talking is a major thing. When you join the Toyota family, it's a family. And I'm telling you right now, when I say I got teammates, those two pop up right away, because those are the two. If I can't win, those are the two I want to win. And, it's a nice thing. It's a really cool thing how well the family works together at Toyota. Yeah.
And, what can you say about just the challenges? Coletta Motorsports been involved with Toyota for many years. Okay, so I use this program called StreamYard, and for whatever reason, those people that are in the Facebook group of WFO, like their name doesn't come up unless they sign in, but someone has posted, "Hey, Ron, your fly is down." Which,
not possible. I'm not wearing any pants.
He's not wearing pants, folks. But that was a line.
Good try.
But that was a line from the awards banquet, right? Like right before you went out there.
I didn't even get it. Yeah.
So, could that be, who do you think that is? They know that they either watch the video.
Oh, it's got to be Guido. Yeah.
Or it might be Guido. We don't know. So you'd have to type it in there.
Yeah, I'm a nervous wreck walking on stage, and I asked for the guys to stay behind me. They would have the teams come up in case nobody watched it on the replay of the show. But yeah, and Guido, I go to hug him as I'm walking up to give my speech, and he whispers in my ear, "Your fly is down." And I'm like, "Now? Seriously, you're going to do that to me now?" So
perfect.
That's
perfect
funny.
execution. Perfect execution, Dean. That's the way you do it, right? In the most critical moment. I got a nice photo of me and Nikki and Guido out there. And, he's like, this guy's a rock star. I love seeing his, the swagger come out. We'll get to the end of the season because I've got a story. I've told it 10 times, but I'll tell it again to you because it was amazing. But let's continue to advance the story on the season. So then you go to the final round at Brainerd. You run her up to Tasca, who got hot. He factored into the championship big time. Then we go to Indy, right? Indy. You win the call out, and we just throw it out there. You win the call out, you win the race. It's amazing how doing something changes the space-time line, right? The continuum. The week before, you were the greatest driver to have never won the U.S. Nationals, and it was like the last thing on your resume that was something that someone could say something about, right? Like, anything. Like, well, Cap's never won Indy, right? Like, ha. And the week later, all of that is erased. You won the money was a big deal too. Like the money to win the call out, to win Indy, all erased in one weekend of success and really elevating yourself to, I won't say favorite status, but one of the favorites for the countdown in that one weekend. Had to be one of the greatest single weekends of Ron Cap's career.
Yeah. And, I'd like to think, and we work pretty hard at it, Guido and I, the team, they do pretty well when the car does well. And that's on purpose. That's for that very reason. So a home race, which to me, Indy is Indy, right? But to me, I love Indy. I love St. Louis. I love the tracks that are super close. Chicagoland we're going back to, because it's a chance for our crew guys, as hard as they work, to have their families out. They can make the short trip to these races, especially Indy right down the street. So the coolest thing of all weekend, obviously calling out Tim Wilkerson, getting payback from the year before and getting wilked, right? Then to call out, then I didn't realize that we got to call out because we were low AT the next round. Who else but John Force, right? The biggest name, the GOAT. And to get past him and then have Matt Hagan, one of the best drivers and teams there is in Funny Car, period. And to win on a hole shot, which was not really a hole shot, but we'll take it, right? And then the next day to win. But the coolest thing was those two winner circles, to have crew guys and their families, moms and dads and wives and girlfriends and kids hanging out. That is something you cannot replace. You can never replicate that. People don't understand how hard it is to win at a home track. Winning the championship at Pomona for me is all my family. Everybody's there. So to do that at Indy was huge for our team and our team's family. That was the most that stands out for me.
Yeah. And
the money was good. The money was great.
Right. The money, making a big deal of it. The call out, and even thinking as you tell stories, I think about when you called out Force, there were some people who thought, why would he do that? Like, why would he make Force run Robert? And that, like just different, I forget the exact specifics, but I like the big gutsy call. Anytime you get an opportunity to say you to John Force, like that doesn't happen. It was the first time you guys got to do that game.
Well, for the record, just so everybody knows, backstage of the call out, when Robert Hight went up and called out Tasca, that was huge. It made the hair on my neck stand up. And everybody kind of looked at each other, all the rest of the drivers, because he was first. I was on the phone with Guido back at the pit area with our team. We do everything as a team. So we chose Tim Wilkerson. We wanted to get back. It was fun. You don't want to race a guy like that, but we figured you got to race him eventually anyway. Might as well race him, get it out of the way. But I love Tim Wilkerson, right? Hate racing him. I love him. But here's the funny thing is I didn't know that we had a chance for second round of the call out after we won the first round to make the next call out being low AT. So Kelly Antonelli, Guido's wife, is down there for Tony Stewart racing at the top end all the time. When I was told that, I had a few seconds and we're on live TV and Amanda's there. And I'm like, they're like, who are you going to call out? And so I don't have my phone. I have Paul Meck, our team manager, trying to call Guido. He's not answering. He's walking back from the starting line after we just won. Kelly finally gets a hold of him because I'm not going to I almost had to make the call myself, which I was probably going to call out Force anyway, but that was a team thing. That was Guido. He finally got on the phone. He said, yep, I'm with you. Let's call out Force. So that wasn't just me being arrogant and cocky. I just figured it's Indy, it's the U.S. Nationals. It's the old Big Bud shootout style with what Pep Boys did. And why not call out the biggest name in the world? Yeah.
And give the fans what they want. And because the fans always want that,
Some
right?
of them.
They do. Well, it depends on the result, right? The Force fans became disappointed as soon as your win light came on. But what a weekend. And now it's time for the countdown. And Robert comes out of the box, bang, Pep Boys Nationals, Maple Grove, win. And I want you to spend a minute telling me a little bit about sizing up other teams. Does that happen? What do we think these guys are going to do? Who's going to be our biggest threat? What are they capable of? What do we have to do? Because it was I got in trouble for using for saying the word tier, right? Like the guys who are the most likely and kind of breaking it down, handicapping the deal. But, in the end, it turned out to be true. How did you forecast the way the countdown could go, should go? And in the end, it was you and Robert like slugging it out.
Yeah, we do that. You can say tier or whatever, every team, but we don't look at it like that because it's almost backwards. If you start to think that way, that's the car that will beat you. It's karma. It'll always happen. If you talk about somebody, I made a comment one time to Jeff about Jeff Deal's car, and it wasn't even meant bad. It just came out in an interview. I frantically called him on his cell phone. I forget, he was servicing his car somewhere in a parking lot. And I said, dude, I didn't mean to say what I said. I felt bad about the way that I said something in an interview about racing a car like his, a part-time car. So yes, you got to be careful. And you do size, obviously, going into the countdown, you just got done with Indy, you wipe it away, and you're like, okay, now it's 6 races for everything you dreamt about. So everybody has their goals. Everybody was 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th in points are like, yes, now I'm back in it. We're going to go win Reading, and we're going to jump right back in it. I mean, everybody has the same press releases. If you read them all, everybody's looking to get back on the right track and start off with a win. But everybody can't, right? We had a terrible race. Didn't qualify well. We had an issue pop up. But again, I talked about the get up and go and the Napa know-how that I brag about these guys. We had an issue that a lot of teams probably would have gone a couple races before they found the gremlin. And Guido and the guys found it, but we ended up going out second round. So that was a quick loss. First race of the countdown after having a great Indianapolis. But we had worked our way into second in the points and earned that spot to be able to not be so far back. And so at the time, it was the worst thing in the world, right? But we knew we were going right to the next race. And if we were right and we found the problem like Guido said we did, then what ended up happening happened. And we went to the next race and ended up winning.
Right. Robert wins the first race. You win the second race. You went in first and second in the point standings. Like this is, shaping up. You're the reigning champion. It's really amazing the way it worked out. So you go to Charlotte, you get a win over Alexis. Robert loses second round. So he won the first race. You lost second round. You won the second race. He lost second round. So all of a sudden things even out. And then you go to St. Louis where you both make the final round. He comes out on top, but at that point, the first 3 races are 3 weeks in a row. We get to learn, like, what's this countdown going to be like? And at the conclusion of the third race, we knew it was going to be Robert and Jimmy and Chris versus you, John, and Guido. It was going to be Chevy versus Toy. Yeah, someone else could get in there. Hagan was still like hovering around. Tasca, very tough to beat. But you guys in the first 3 races, both with wins, and then made a final round win and a runner-up for Robert. But where was your head at the conclusion of St. Louis?
Well, exactly what you just said. I was always quick to remind people, be careful. It's the cars that aren't exactly in it. They're the dangerous ones. And that proved to be the case all the way through the countdown. If you go all the way through Pomona, you never count out Hagan and Dickey. First of all, they were back a little bit. We gained a bunch at that race, of course, in St. Louis. We have these moments, we look back, Tolber and I used to do it, Roland Leong and I used to do it, and Guido and I have done it, where you say, that's where we won the championship. And it's not always Pomona on Sunday. In fact, it hardly ever is. It's these certain moments you look back and you go, wow, that was huge. We knew it was huge at the time, but we didn't realize how huge it was. Robert beat me on a whole shot. I didn't have a bad light. He just had a better light, and they didn't have lane choice. I was sort of, you hear drivers and crew chiefs talk about where you're almost counting the win, but you're not counting your chickens before they're hatched. But you have lane choice. There's one supposedly better lane, and you go up there and just not to mess up and go down the track, and they're really going to have to push, and that lane may not hold it, blah, blah, blah. And I, at the time in the shutdown there, I said, that might be their run that they're going to look back after winning the championship, and they're going to say that was the run. All you could do is shake the guy's hand. He outran us. Well, he didn't outrun us, but it was a whole shot. So that was a tough week following that race. But you never count out Hagan's car. It's always right there. And Tasca, you didn't know what was going to happen. And, of course, everybody else, you just don't know. But everybody said, okay, it's these 2. Well, I knew it wasn't, and it turned out to not be because we saw battle with Hagen jumping back in the middle of it and all that. But yeah, that was a soul searching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after that race for me. I couldn't figure out how I lost in a whole shot. Why did I lose? Why did I not have a better light at that moment? It's just a lot of things that, man, it aged me about 3 years in that 3 days.
And then you had a little break, right? Because we're going to the Stampede of Speed. The first 3 races were done. Now we're going to a Dallas race, and you were part of our champions dinner, and they had all of these great things associated that hopefully, maybe took your mind off of it, or maybe it focused your mind, or maybe it was just a nice thing. But we delved into it, and we had this great meal, and then we go out to the race, and here you are. You got to battle Robert in the semis. And to me, that's back against the wall. If you lose that round, back-to-back races to Robert, then, man, you probably, I don't want to say you're done, because anything can happen. Just like you keep saying, right? Any given Sunday, any one of these teams can beat you and ruin your whole deal. It doesn't matter who you are. But that having been said, look who finished first and second in the point standings. But that semifinal run against Robert in Dallas, you would go on to win the race over Hagen. That run, is that where you won the championship? Where did that stack up as far as huge runs in the playoffs?
Well, the year before, we look back at the win there, and that was for sure one of those moments we did look back at the end of the season and say that was a big weekend. That weekend at the time felt like that was going to be a game changer for us in the championship if it worked out, which it did. This year, same thing. And not even that. The final round against Hagen's team, who was coming alive again, and you never count them out. He's one of the best levers and drivers, and Dickie's got a hell of a car. So we struggled a little bit in qualifying Dallas, and again, here we were, and it's Robert on our side. We needed to make up a bunch of points because obviously losing on a whole shot in St. Louis put us back again. So that was a big moment for me. And the year before, I had that big moment in Dallas for me in the car, and I was so happy. Obviously, Robert and the team smoked the tires for whatever reason. Maybe they pushed a little harder. We don't know. Lanes aren't that different there, so it's not a huge lane difference. Although Guido was loving that lane, I made the mistake in my interview saying that, and we lost lane choice. So in my semifinals, I made a comment. Then I was instantly mad at myself on the ride back to the pit area because I guarantee Dickie heard it and knew, even though there wasn't a big lane difference, that maybe Guido had a thing, because crew chiefs have a thing. Even if even lanes, they might like a little tiny bump that's not here and maybe down there, and they sort of get a feel for a lane, and okay, put it in shallow. We want to keep lane choice all day. Then it's a priority. So, yeah, that was huge. The Robert win was big in the points, but it didn't mean as much as it did until we won the final against Hagen. Then we had that swing of points. Now we're going to Vegas. Big party in the winter circle in Dallas, but now we're going to Vegas right in it and just a few points back.
Right in it, a few points back, feeling the pressure. It's boiling. Everyone is wondering, Tasca is fast. He's got Neff. They had a great season. There have been some races that he lost to Hagen, a couple just by thousandths. Just because someone didn't go on and win the race and factor in, it wasn't because they had a bad team or they performed well. They just came out short on some of these couple of races. And in the second round in Vegas, you fell to Tasca. Meanwhile, Robert goes to the final round and runners up to Hagen. And both of those, like that runner up to Hagen for Robert, they got to be thinking, oh man, if we could have just got those points, that's the championship right there. At the same time, one of our listeners, Troy, is out there in the chat section, and he stood right next to you as you packed your parachute after being defeated. And he watched that experience of you processing the deal. And he's in the chat section a little bit earlier, just asking about, he watched it. He came on the show and told the story of it. Ron, talk about the time between going out in Vegas and the start of Pomona. How did you recover? He watched you go through the whole, I have to be cool to everybody right now, but I am very upset and just dealing with this deal. And maybe we're going to test tomorrow, so I'm going to service the car. And in that public focus of having just been beaten with the championship on the line and knowing that could have been it.
Yeah, I hate not having it in our own hands, your destiny, I guess. So, yeah, I knew we were testing on Monday, so I knew I had to pack chutes anyway. And then people see you're packing your chute, and they're not the hardcore fans think that you're still in. So they good job last round. Good luck next round. And so that's tough. That time we left and went back to our hotel at the Sierra, and we were just going to go back and hang out. And, I had a lot of family and friends there, and got a great Chickies and Pete's in there. We're going to watch football and just hang out with everybody. And I expected, at the time, Robert was running so well. But I got a text from somebody at the track. I can't remember who it was, that Hagen won and Robert lost. And I was thinking we were going really with a bad deficit going into Pomona. And all of a sudden it didn't seem so bad with the 1.5 points, 30 points per round structure. So it instantly, Sunday night wasn't so bad. And we stayed and tested Monday and learned quite a bit. And, the year before, Vegas was the thing that really might have sealed it for us, because a lot of the contenders went out early. We didn't win. We went to the final and lost. It backfired in the final, and we should have won anyway, but we lost the final. But we gained a bunch on our contenders and went to Pomona with a pretty decent padded lead. This year, conversely, it kind of worked against us. But with Hagen winning, like you said, it changed things a lot mentally for us. So we ended up having a fun Sunday night and celebrating with our team and family and friends, and did the SEMA stuff, which SEMA was all a little bit better, that we knew that we were a little better off points wise. And just got ready for Pomona and try to keep our head, in the game through that off weekend. It's the longest off weekend before Vegas, or before Pomona and after Vegas, because you just want to get to Pomona. You just want to start racing and get it over with.
Yeah, Brittany said that as well, that it was gut-wrenching, that she's just dealing with that time between Vegas and Pomona was anxiety filled. I recall watching you and Brian Loans up on the stage, and you're telling Brian that you felt confident and that you've done this before, and you gave us that whole what you just said. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder, does he really feel like that? He's got to say it. Like, you've got to say it. What do you say? You're like, yeah, well, it's unlikely that we're going to win. We're going to go out. No, you got to almost talk yourself into that deal. But you said it with conviction. And it made me think, like, man, this guy seems pretty confident given the circumstance. 1.5 points. Who knows? And now the finals start. So let's talk about that weekend. Now you're out there. You're back home, California, and you were swinging for the fences in the first couple of sessions to get the 4 points. Let's run 369. You're trying to go crazy on the first day of qualifying, and it didn't work out.
I don't even think we were swinging that hard. It was funny because Robert and I are next to each other. Hagen smokes the tires. We hear it. Then we line up next to each other and we both smoke the tires. It's like, we joked about it at the top end. In fact, I think we gave Robert a ride back on our golf cart, but it was like, how anticlimactic was that? And I don't think Jimmy and I don't think Guido was pushing really hard. I just don't think the track was ready for a decent run by our guys or any of the funny cars. So, yeah, it was not a great start, and we left a lot of points on the table, we thought. And we Friday night didn't make it down. We were on the bump, I think, Friday night. So it was a long Friday night trying to, we got a motorhome there. We stay there, a lot of friends and family that hang out. And it's a real sort of a family thing with both sides of my family that come to that race. And we have a whole area down in the motorhome lot that, so those nights are tough sometimes because you want to get it out of your head. Yet there's fans that stay in there too. And so everybody's coming up and talking. So that was tough, but I knew that, I got confidence, but you just never know. So going into Saturday, as soon as I walked in the pit area, Guido pulled me up and showed me what he thought went wrong. And he was right. Went right down the track that day, gained some points. And then, of course, Saturday night's run was Dallas, we thought was the one that changed everything for us. Saturday Q4 was the run that actually did.
The run that actually did. Larry Elliott says, I talked to Ace Friday night at the hotel in Pomona. He says, Guido will lay down a pass tomorrow. The rest is history. And that's absolutely right. Well, first of all, Cruz Pedregon is like, hey, don't forget about me. I am going to go run 84 every time down the racetrack and show everyone we've got great performance. And so he was, provisional number one qualifier. And I think most people were ready to give it to him. Like, yeah, that's going to be it. And then right at the last second. And that's what made the difference. Those points. Now, the space-time continuum would have been totally different. And we don't know. Maybe you beat Cruz in the final round if you don't have to protect the championship, all of those things. Like, we just don't know. But in this reality that we're all living in, that is the run that cut the point differential below 2 rounds.
Huge. Last pair lined up next to Cruz. We're both competitive. Cruz and I, we've raced dirt together. He's a hell of a driver, hell of a guy to race. And what did I tell you? I told you last year. I told you this year. I told the fans, it's the teams that are not fighting for the championship that you got to worry about. And they're the ones that are going to try things. They're going to test. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And that's a great team already. But the fact that they found what they found, they put the 6-disc clutch in and just everything lined up. And they were running great, obviously. And so that run was huge, huge. I was fighting for my life to keep the car just in the center of the track and the groove. And so when they came on the radio, I just heard Madeline. He usually tells me what it runs or something. I could hear mayhem behind him in the radio. And I thought, wow, it felt good. But when I pulled the chutes, it really threw me forward. So it must have been pretty good. I just didn't realize how good. And I didn't even still realize how huge it was until after the interview when I was told everything that happened, the points we gained, we moved here and there. And then Phil Burgess told me that it moved us ahead going into the next day. And just everything was all of a sudden looking pretty good.
Yeah, amazing. And so Robert goes out to Tasca. Tasca beat you second round in Vegas. Then Tasca beats Robert second round at the finals. So Tasca, who, his team has moved on and they're, I'm sure they're in a rebuilding mode, but like was involved in this championship story in many ways, just kind of below the surface a little bit, like with these key wins and, amazing stuff. But he takes out Robert and you go to the final round and you're unable to really celebrate the championship because of the rule that NHRA and Glenn Cromwell has now said that we're going to change that rule because of, apparently there was this little discussion on the Brittany side of thing. Like we paraded her down there and she's the champion, but had she crossed the center line, then we might've been eating a bunch of crow and thank God that didn't happen. But before you went out there, we were like, put the brakes. Let's not parade Ron as the champion because maybe this will happen. And everyone started to talk a little bit about that. You've addressed this, but address it again in the official WFO champion interview. It was not just like a normal, hey, we're probably going to win the championship moment.
No, I didn't realize what was going on. I got out and I was kind of waiting for all the hoopla. And then somebody told me, right, I think Amanda did for the interview. She said, we can't do it. Officially, you have to not cross the center line in the final. So you're talking about a just emotional, first to get the win light over a tough car like Wilkerson, and then to race Tasca, but expecting to have the trophy there and not get it. And then, now I'm an owner having to have a discussion over what was happening. So I get back and I go right in to the lounge with Madeline and Guido, and I shut the door and I said, okay, what's going on? What do we got to do? And I didn't realize the fans were in on it or the TV people at home watching. I didn't understand that anybody, at the track understood what was going on because I still had to pack my chute. So Guido and Madeline and I said, okay, what do we do? I mean, these things. Guido said, look, you're good at this. You go down. If it gets weird, shut the car off. And I hate losing the cruise pads are gone, but I hate it a lot. Right? I've talked about how competitive he is. I am. So that was out there a little bit. That I guess your little bit of your ego, you have to sort of have that floating out there. The big thing in the championship, it's everything we fought for. We were Toyota and Napa and all of our partners are there. And we have a chance of doing something like we did coming back and not to mess it up by going out. And anybody in their right mind would just shut the car off after 60 feet. We've seen and heard things happen in the past with cars shutting off or doing a burnout and clicking it off and just things to not jeopardize a chance at what you've dreamt about, a world championship. So all that going on, Guido said, just let's go up there and you do what you're comfortable with. Okay. So I'm packing my chute and then I decide I want to talk to Del Worsham. So I had somebody, when I was packing my chute, a fan or somebody go up and grab Del for me. I said, hey, if Del's still up at his trailer, have him come down. I look up and I'm about done with my chute and he's running down between fans. And so I ran him and met him halfway. I go, don't run. It's not that important. Maybe he thought something was wrong. So we met by Coletta's trailer, and I just said, here's a scenario. And he says, yeah, I know. And I said, what do we do? And he's same thing as Guido. He says, you've been doing this a long time. Go out there. If you're not comfortable, shut it off. And I go, Del, you know how these things are. They could go out and put 2 holes out and shove me over 30 feet. And all of a sudden I'm the dumbest guy in the world. Right. So he said, you're going to be good no matter what you do. So I'm sure he was also expecting me to go out there and shut it off. And then we get strapped in the car. They're rushing us for live TV. We barely make it up. They send Top Fuel out first. I see Tobler win with Austin. He comes back and he's giving me signals and stuff in the car. I still don't know what I'm going to do. I should go out and just shut the car off and coast down, and we have a championship. But then I'm like, I've been up in those grandstands at Pomona, and I've seen how upset fans get at things like that. So I wanted to give them a run for their money. But it's a funny car. You don't know what these things will do. And I'm telling you, they're evil handling. So I said, I'm going to do the longest burnout I've done in years, which we don't get to do long burnouts. So I do this huge long burnout. And T-Buck, the guy that backs me up, he's running, his hat's falling off. He's almost tripping. We get back, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. And in my head, I go, I'm just going to run it a little ways because these things are so violent. And I'm just going to see what happens. And then I started thinking, if anything goes, I'll just go over and inch it over. It's a good track at Pomona. It even not in the groove, but a little bit out of the groove, you might still be all right. And I'll just get over by the wall a little bit and run it down there. And if I don't see Cruz, I'll stay in it, right? Because I made sure I sent somebody to talk to Cromwell and NHRA and asked, if we touch the wall with the header, it's not the same. There's no points deduction, right? It's just the center line between the 1,000 foot and the 1320. And they said, yes, if you touch the wall, it's okay. You will not lose points. You will lose the run and be TQ'd and have to replace your headers, but you won't lose the points. So I had that in my head. And then right before we'd started it, Guido leaned in and he said, I'm going to try to run a little quicker than our qualifying run. And I think if everything goes right, it might run 340. Pomona's downhill. The conditions were there. It was as good as qualifying at Q4 when we went 83 and it went 338. So I'm thinking 2 miles per hour. We could beat Cruz, still have the championship, and go 340 on the last run of the year in the conditions that are there. So all that's in my head, and I'm lighting a pre-stage light with all that going on. So that's what I did. The car left. It was hauling, you know what? And it just started to shudder a little bit, which it normally does. It just started taking off, and I'm so mad at myself. I was mad that night in the winter circle. I've been mad. I just let the car, I moved it myself over the left just a little bit. I didn't want to be in the center and have something weird go on down there. And I just ran it down next to the wall, watching the header flames. And it still went 85, and I clicked it off early. Not to say we would have beat Cruz. That was a hell of a run he made. Just who knows, right? But if you look at the replay, the frame at the finish line, my flames are out. And who knows? Who knows what it would have ran? We had great back half speeds, and doesn't matter now. Cruz is going to be tough next year. But the fact that we almost would have been pretty cool to win the race as well. But it's just so funny how things come down like that. And I had the gratification was showing up at the casino hotel that we had our awards at and having my my peers, my crew chief friends and peers and drivers. As I walked in the elevator and everywhere I went, even before I went downstairs, stopped me and going, dude, I can't believe you ran it down there, but that was the coolest thing ever. So, and even Dell texted me, he goes, dude, that may not have been the smartest thing, but that was pretty cool. You ran it down there. So it all worked out. We didn't get the win of the race, but that was kind of what was going on in our headspace rolling into that final round.
Oh, great recollection of that. Headline, Cap sacrifices first ever 340 for a world championship. That's okay, Ron. No big deal. The phone traffic behind the scenes about what they should do and what are they going to do. And all of these texts are coming in and there's all kinds of communication going on. So I just went up to Guido, like right on the start and was like, hey, off the record, man, just for me, just so I understand the methodology. How are you going to handle this? And he's like, we're going to run it. What are you talking about? And he had a whole methodology that was all rooted in what you just said, man. We're at the finals. You mentioned Tobler. I went to Tobler. I felt like it was going to be his final wine night. That's kind of where you and I, became friends, like hanging with Tobler and everything. And he, a couple of cars pulled out of line after they knew they were qualified. And I mentioned something like, why make the pass if you're qualified was the question. The answer is because this is the finals at Pomona. Saturday night, the sun's going down. This is it. Final race of the season. You run your car. And we talked about that. And Guido was kind of on the same deal. Like, this is what we do. This is drag racing. Like, we make the run. But that's going to be part of this forever, right? Like, that decision to make the run. And a lot of people told me that they wouldn't have. They would not have done it. Would have left it popped the bottles. After that, we're not running the final. Bye run for Cruz. He wins. We don't go up. We're the champion. Take the money. And the fact that you guys did it, I think that's going to live forever. It's going to be a big part of this championship as years go by. And we think back like, wow, man, that was gutsy, Ron.
Gutsy, perhaps dumb, who knows? But yeah, it all worked out. It all worked out. It's funny how I've been beating myself up and because I feel like we had a chance to maybe win that race too. And that would have just been, and it's so funny. You have everything in the world that you dreamt of. And yet I'm still like, it would have been so cool to win the race and make another run like we did on Saturday night, but oh well.
Yeah. Oh, well, and now you're the champ. Okay. So I think it's great. There's 100 things, couple of questions out there from audience members, that you have already answered, I think. And so what about as we look forward, the 2 in a row championships back to back? John Force did it in the early century, all right, early 2000s. The last time it's done, we always talk about how Funny Car is so competitive, but now you get to wear the number 1 again. You're going into 2023. We're starting off in Gainesville. Do you have any major announcements coming up, or are you pretty much standing on what you got as we get ready to go into this 2023? Of course, PRI coming up.
Yeah, no, it's been fun last half a month. I mean, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes business wise, and I'm really happy where our team's at. We're going to try to just keep going what we have and add to it a little bit. Of course, Medlin retiring opened up a huge void on our team. So Guido hasn't announced anything or said anything, but we're going to move T-Buck, who's been our car chief, and I've known him forever. He was at John Force's, well-deserving to be assistant crew chief. We're moving another guy to car chief. All of our guys are fully capable of being in those positions, which is cool. I love the fact that right away Guido was like, we're going to promote within. And I love our team. We're losing one guy, that our supercharger specialist, Bob Peck, and he's going to work at Schumacher's in the shop. He wants to be around his family a little more. And I think this morning we just hired a new kid, and we're going to move another crew member that we already have up. So there's a lot of promoting within, and I love that. So I'm excited about that part of it. Going to PRI, my wife and I, and my wife has been, she jumped in and not expecting that we were going to have her involved as much as we have in the past. And she's been unbelievable. She has been the rock that's held it together behind the scenes with all the insurance and stuff that you don't think about, and payroll and all that. So we're going to go to PRI and do a photo shoot at the shop, I think Wednesday. And we're going to have a Christmas holiday dinner this week with the guys there in Indy, and just get ready for next year. So no major announcement, just a lot of fun stuff at PRI, running around with sponsors that we have that we want to make sure we take care of. And I was trying to think, Joe, I don't think there's a whole lot going on. We got the new Supra bodies coming, and that'll add to what we already have. It's exciting right now. Obviously, the money that we made is going to help fund some of the stuff that we can keep going. But I'm still I'm treading water. That's what I feel like every day. I wake up earlier than I ever woke up because I got so much on my mind, and I can't wait to get the day started and kind of go through all the behind the scenes stuff I never had to worry about. So it's going to be fun.
You said just a minute ago, and I don't know if it's breaking news, but it's news that, Guido hasn't announced who's going to be the co-crew chief, but then you just announced it. And I thought for like a millisecond, oh, I hope Ron doesn't get in trouble for putting the news out. And then I thought,
I'm going to fire myself again.
He's the guy. I
fired myself quite a few times. I almost said it in my speech that anybody's looking for a decent funny car driver, there's one on the market, because me, the owner, would have fired the driver for running that thing down there next to the wall and going 385. So,
but it's anyway. Epic. It was epic. It was an epic performance. John Medlin, the guy is retiring. This guy has been such a part of drag racing. I am skeptical that anyone that has been able to be such a big part of drag racing is going to be able to stay away for very long. That's my take. I know he's got this great cabin, and you guys have told me that whole deal and whatever he wants, but the pull of this sport and the people within it and the challenges, putting up frames in a cabin or whatever he's going to do. Just talk a little bit about John Medlin and what he has added to this group, because he's got a lot going on beyond his engineering and creative abilities. Like, this guy is a soulful character. He's given so much to the sport. But the way he's handled all of the tragedy and the positive side, like, he's a beloved individual. He will not be with us at least for next year, but I'm sure if you guys have a question, you're going to go right to him and he'll be part of it.
Yeah. And we joked about it, but we're having a non-compete clause with any other funny car teams, because he's already getting hit up to go help some other teams, whether it's on the phone or whatnot. Just a great guy. I've had great moments with him. I've had one of the most terrible moments in my life, which was 10 times or 100 million times worse for him, with Eric's accident and being there with him. And at that moment, so I always felt like I had sort of a bond with him. And then he was my crew chief in one of my Sonoma wins, which was crazy weird, right? With all the Eric Medlin stuff that we have done in the past. Don Schumacher brought him in as a crew chief for a little while after Ace had left. And so we won that race together. So we've got this great thing, and I think the world of him, like most people do. And as good as he is around race cars, he's even better in the machine shop and around machining and that type of thing. So I think hopefully Don's smart enough to know, and he is, that they're going to try and keep him helping out with a lot of DSM stuff there at the machine shop, because he's always done that during the week. And so, but you never know. There's teams already that I know that some have called me asking if they could talk to Medlin and have him consult with them. But just a great guy, great to have around, not even on the race car itself. He is so good at the old school stuff of, there's nothing better when I walk in the trailer in the morning and he's got a piston out and he's looking at the rings and he's analyzing this or that, and something happened in the run before, and he's just good. He's not just staring at the computer. He's really good at looking at his stuff. And that's always rubbed off on Guido and our crew guys. And so that's the biggest thing, is you're only as good as your leader, right? And he has been that way for our crew guys. And so, it's going to be hard to replace, but the wine and the dinners and all the fun stuff, the stories, that's the parts that I really, really relish and I'm going to miss. The best part, I was hoping we'd win a championship, obviously, but the best part was thinking, man, how cool would it be to hand him that world championship trophy to go to that cabin that they're going to go spend the rest of their lives at. And just, you don't think that's possible or it's going to happen. So that's the coolest thing. And listen, Joe, I was getting ready to get on this morning. I'm like, how many times have I come up short of winning a world championship and had Robert or whoever, Hagen, win, and you got to sit through the banquet after not winning it, and you got to watch the videos and listen to the guy that won it, get up there and talk. And it's just, it's until you get to the bar afterwards, it's the longest night, right? It's like, you start thinking of all the things that went wrong and where, and it's just not a fun night if you didn't win it. And I know all these other teams are thinking that, and I've been there a million times, trust me. So I always want to, as a champion, the previous 2 times, I wanted to make our team represent the funny car class and take NHRA to a better place than it was before we won the championship every year, and be the best representative I can be for our sport and the funny car class. So I know how pissed and upset that whole team of Roberts was, especially, and some fans with the old school points, but the countdown is what it is. We all sign up for it. We know it. We plan for it. We adjust. We do things all year just for what the countdown brings. And I've been on the other side of it way more than I've been on this side of it. So I'm very proud to have the championship and the number 1 on the car again. I'm more proud of our team, but I get where everybody else is at. So I empathize, trust me, with a lot of those teams.
So I was going to let you slide on that. I have the question. I was like, dude, don't talk to the guy about this negative thing in his champion interview. But since you brought it up, you're the champ. So you, like, Robert can't say anything right now because he'll be perceived as being a sore loser, right? It's just a tough deal. Is there a different way to do this, Ron? Like, should we, like, I feel like it was super exciting and we had one of the best playoffs we've ever had, and someone was going to finish second, and that person was going to be horribly aggravated regardless of the system, right? Like, it was 3 points. You've experienced single digit losses twice.
2 points and 6 points.
Prior to this, like 2 championships under 10 points combined. So you are the perfect guy to talk about this. You made the final round of both 1.5 races. You won Indy and you run it up at the finals and all of that, and the taking points and the losing points and this and that. What's your take? Like, should we leave it exactly as it is? Should we reward winning more? I'm looking at the points. There's clear moments where they lost the championship. I hate to be harsh. There's moments where you guys won the championship. Just reality. But you just won, so you have the standing to say whatever you think right now as the guy who won. What do you think right now?
Well, it's funny how NASCAR has taken what was our original countdown. It was a countdown to what? Countdown to 8, countdown to 4, elimination, and then it only. So it's funny how those have come back to kind of sort of copy what we had originally. I like the playoff thing because I've been 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th going into the points, and I understand how nice that is to get yourself back into it. So that reset is good. I think that they should do something. We all talked about in interviews, every pre-race interview before Pomona and going into the countdown, I said, how crazy would it be for a team to win 8 races and not win a championship? And I hope to be on the other side of that and be part of that. But how funny would it be, right? It's not funny, but guess what? It ended up happening. We won 5. I mean, it's not like we were anything to sneeze at, but I think you should be rewarded somehow on race wins. I'm not sure how, like NASCAR does it going into their chase, but I think that should be added. I think for sure bring back E-to-E national record points, whether it's 10 points or not. That was such a fun when the headers were laid back and the national record was on the line, and it wasn't done until the race was over. I remember one race, it was Beckman, myself, Robert, and I think Hagen's car all reset the national record all in one weekend before whoever finally got it. So that extra 10 points was there. That would have changed things up. I think with the way the crew chiefs are now, that would be a fun addition to put back in. But other than that, you can go over 1,000 of them. I just think it's a good thing for everybody. The playoffs are, it is what it is. You have terrible seasons sometimes, and you know that's coming where you can get back in the game somewhat. You're out a little bit, but you got a chance, and I think that's good for everybody.
Yeah, it's worth talking about, system discussion, but in the end, you look at who ran whom and when, and the head-to-heads and the big moments, and how Tasca factored in, beating you guys both in the second round of the last 2 races. It's just things happen for a reason, and we can't understand it. It's like the cosmic math out there, and it is what it is. And you're the champ by 3 points in 2022, and we go again in Gainesville not far from now. Ron, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the time you devote to us on WFO Radio. Sat and talked championship for an hour. Thank you so much. I'll see you at PRI, and of course, I wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, all that stuff in advance. But what a year you had from last year to this year. Team owner Ron Capps. And I wish you all the best. Like, keep it going and keep it growing.
Thanks, Joe. And your fans are great, man. I love the show. And yeah, it's going to be a fun season. Look at the way cars are running at the end of the year. It's going to be a blast. And we got about an extra month to get ready for it. So going to be fun starting off in Gainesville. I think the fans are going to dig that. And then we're going to have a nice West Coast swing, out west with Pomona and Phoenix and Vegas. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think the fans were a little upset at first for some of them, not starting the Winter Nationals where Pomona is, but I think you're right. And we'll be down in your part of the country. It'll be after Speed Week and Bike Week and all that stuff. So I think it's going to be a fun year.
It's going to be better. People, I know tradition, but to have 2 national events within 3 months in the same market right after the holidays, that's kind of tough stuff. Let the East Coast carry the weight, guys. The first race is going to be a wild, super sellout mega fest at Gainesville. It always is. It's going to be the opener. And let's start off with a runner on third base in the 2023 season. I think that's what Gainesville is going to bring us. And then we'll come to Pomona. The market will have recovered from the holidays and from NASCAR being there and all that stuff a little bit more. The memory of the amazing finals. Like, you're going to go to one or the other. Which one do you go to? Well, you go to the finals, right? I think this is going to be better, but we're going to put it to the test and we'll know soon enough. Say hi to Shelly. Say hi to everybody for me, and we'll see you at PRI.
You got it. Thanks, man.
There he goes. Ron Capps, 2022 Camping World Series Funny Car World Champion. And such great insights. And that's what we do on WFO Radio. Please subscribe, click the bell. Those of you watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, share the show, retweet, and push it out there. Watching the numbers go up and down during this interview, spiking up and then getting pushed back down through, algorithm stuff. It is so helpful when you share the show on your social media and people can hear these deep insights from the drivers like Ron Capps. And I want to spend a moment or two talking a little bit about the way it all played out and the heartbreak that the teams that did not win, in particular the Auto Club team, have to endure. But before I get into that, and of course your comments are welcome, we would love to hear. Oh, I forgot to show him this picture. I wanted to show him that one, him and John at the awards, at the bar, at the awards banquet. Great stuff. But I do want to tell you about the people who make WFO Radio possible, like Marvin Rodak. I'm getting ready to call Marvin for my holiday packs and send out the coffee to the people that I, help the show and appreciate. Pound of coffee, bottle of hot sauce, container of his award-winning A26 spice rub. It's the perfect gift. It's like an extra sensory experience, just like drag racing. And it lasts more than a day. It's amazing stuff. Call Marvin, 817-924-6821. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School. I see Comp Plus has got a great article about Frank Hawley. We're talking about Frank Hawley every day that we do the show. And what's amazing is in these interviews where we go really in depth with drivers, they talk about Frank Hawley. Last week, I was on E-Part Trade Industry Week. I mentioned to my audience out there that I will be hosting somewhere else last week. Amazing enough that we were able to get the Brittany Force interview in and Alan Reinhart. But Jim Reed is in a 14-time Australian champion. His sons, Bruce Reed and Phil Reed, they run their Top Fuel car out there. And had Jim Oberhofer and Clay Milliken on. We had this kind of wild USA, Australia Top Fuel conversation going on. And in those moments, I just sit back and listen to what they have to say and hear these great moments. But they're talking about how in Australia, they just can't make as many runs. They don't have as many races. They don't have as many events. Phil's talking about how he was able to get to the point where he is so mentally adept and at one with the car. And he gave all the credit to Frank Hawley. Yeah, they told me early in my career I needed to go to Frank Hawley, and I went to Frank Hawley, and Frank Hawley put my mind right. And even to this day, there are mental processes and strategies that I learned at Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School that I apply when arguing with my wife over dinner, right? And she says, stop using the Frank Hawley Jedi mind trick on me. And that, for me, is all you need to know. If you want to go on a wonderful day experience with Frank Hawley, the Dragster Adventure. They bring out the dragsters. Regular people with no experience can drive these dragsters. And it's a rear engine dragster. You're in the cockpit. You're in the roll cage. They can even set up a race. That makes a great gift for the holidays. Go to frankhawley.com. And then if you're looking to advance your education, it's samtech.edu. Go to the website. It's a machining school. Engine blocks and cylinder heads. And you just heard Capps talk about John Medlin being a great machinist as the foundation to his crew chiefing ability. And that's really what Samtech is about, except they train their students. Motorsport EFI tuning, of course, CNC programming. Go to the website, samtech.edu. I have no doubt that they'll be out and about at the PRI show, but call Brian Massengill directly. Call him, ask for Massengill. Heard about John WFO, and I'm thinking about going to the school. They're approved to train veterans under the GI Bill, et cetera, and so on. Samtech.edu. Bernie Speed Shop. This is Josh Hart's personal company. This guy started off going door to door, asking people if he could detail their cars. Can you imagine? Your car looks kind of filthy. I'd like to detail it. And he turned it into a mega business where they have over $5 million in inventory, classic cars. Go to their website, check out the inventory of cars for sale. It is amazing. A 1982 Corvette, mint condition, $15,000, like things that are affordable and fun. Go to Bernie's.com. Really excited about 2023 and Josh Hart and what they've got going on. Go to Bernie's. They're located in Ocala, Florida. Phillips Connect. Smart trailer technology. What a season they had. Started out with a 3-race deal. And talk about betting on yourself. And that's exactly what Justin Ashley and Davis Motorsports did. But really, Jim Epler and Phillips Connect, he leaves drag racing. He goes off. He starts this, working with internet and sensors and Wi-Fi and cellular for a greater good of keeping the roads safer and cargo on time. And then they merged together back with his original true passion, drag racing, like Phillips-Connect.com. If you've got multiple trailers out there on the road, you need to check it out and invest. And then there's FTI Performance Transmissions and Torque Converters. Paul Lee Company, located in DeLand, Florida, FTI Performance. If you are going to go bracket racing, if you are servicing your transmissions in this winter break, which I know everybody is going to do, FTIperformance.com. Hit them up. Tell them you heard about it on WFO and learn why so many of the $1 million winners, big money bracket race winners, .90 winners are using FTI. Top dragster, top sportsman, pro modified, high horsepower street cars, down to your 12-second regular shift kit. They do it all. FTIperformance.com. And then there's Total Seal piston rings, which I will be at PRI for Total Seal in their booth doing hidden horsepowers. Booth number 1525, and they've got something going with the folks at PRI for Save Our Race Cars, where you're going to be able to react for race cars, where if you make a donation, you can hit the practice tree against Matt Hartford and others to save our race cars and find out how PRI can help save our race cars with the RPM Act. Those are our sponsors. Of course, we have got the WFO Patreons who will co-host our Ignition show and all the WFO swag and gear that is available in the WFO store. It's on sale off and on throughout the winter break, but we've got a lot of cool stuff. And I always get excited when I see somebody out there wearing WFO gear at a racetrack. It's great. That's how we grow. All right, let's see what people have to say. Pontiac engine updates. There is an update. I cannot reveal exactly what it is, but the Joe Goes Racing project is at the front of my mind right now. And we've got to get this thing handled. And so once everything is nailed down, I will be able to reveal the Project Pontiac storyline. For those that don't know, I have got a Pontiac Trans Am that my dad bought brand new in 1978. It is our bracket car, our passion car, the car that we love, but it needs an engine service. And I have a specific goal that I am trying to achieve by having something that's worthy of running NHRA Super Street in NHRA Southeastern Division. And I've got to advance the ball on this. And so I have been, busy during the year traveling, but now it is on the top of the radar, and the ball is moving. I don't want to say exactly what just yet, though. Let's see. Antdog, want to publicly thank Joe. He's allowed the 51-year-old BMXer to put WFO on his jersey. I finally won my first expert race this past weekend. Get out. Way to go, Antdog. This guy does his own social media. He's a WFO listener / fan, but he's got his own stuff going, right? And he is as passionate about BMX as he is drag racing. And he takes the attitude and swag into his BMX races. He was injured earlier this year, and he came back from injury, and he just won his first expert race. Way to go, Antdog. Congratulations, buddy. Thank you. And he's always texting me updates and stuff. And I appreciate that. That is so great. Let's see. Thank you very much, Joe. As always, says Mopar. Megan, a new Patreon. Ron is so genuine. Glad he is the champ. Yes, I am glad that he will represent Funny Car. I feel terrible about Robert, and I'm about to talk a little bit about that. Fantastic interview today. Ron has great things to say. Ready for Gainesville. Campsite has been paid for. Way to go, Jim Parks. I'll come over and have a beer. Love that guy. Holly, can't wait. Matt, very late, right after I said goodbye to Ron. He throws up a question when you're coming down to Australia, down there in Oz. What's up? All right, so here's the deal. did an interview on that EPAR trade deal with the Force family, and I thought it went great. But, I talked to Robert Hite 8 times this year, and I got to watch his, the roller coaster ride. And Jimmy Prock and Chris Cunningham, and those guys are great people, and also at the very top of their chosen sport. They're as good as it gets. But in this particular season, they were, I want to call them the New England Patriots, but they were playing the role of the favorite. The guy who led the points coming in, the guy who had the best regular season. And they went into the playoffs, and everybody knew in January what the system was going to be and the deal with 1.5 points and here and there. And when it was all over and the dust settled, they were 3 points out of the lead and they lost. And that is just like, for a guy like me who sits behind the microphone to even be in a position to talk about such a thing, like what they're dealing with. Every second thought about every run that they came up a little bit short or didn't take advantage of. But that's what competition is. And they know that. Like, they know it better than anybody. They know it better than anybody. And this past weekend, you watch the NFL and you think about, the Super Bowl. A whole season comes down to one game, and the team that comes up short in the Super Bowl, and they've not won. They're not the champs. The Patriots, thinking back to the Tyree ball on the helmet catch, those guys are going to live with that feeling like, man, that guy caught the ball on his helmet, and, David Tyree, and like, how did that happen? And it's so random, and it doesn't matter. It's like, it's cruel, but it's the reality. A boxing match where in the final round, the obviously beaten opponent, and that's definitely not the case with Ron Capps right here. Like, Ron Capps won 2 races and runner-up in 2 races in the countdown. He made the final round in 4 of 6 races, lost second round in the other 2. They had a great countdown and they won by 3 points. But how many times in the world of boxing, the fighter who has dominated the fight has got their opponent beaten, gets caught by a haymaker in the final round, gets knocked out? That happens. That's the way when people get involved in sports, competition of any kind, that's one of the horrible downsides to it. And Ron just talked about 2 world championships lost by a total of 8 points prior to this. And so, like, I think about Robert, I think how terrible that is. Like, oh man, to have to live with that. The guy's a 3-time champion though, and he's had the good side. And the more you show up at that moment, the more times you show up at the world championship moment, the more different experiences you're going to have. And this is the heartbreaker. It's just tough stuff. Now, that's why I asked Ron, all right, Ron, what would you do? Robert can't talk about that. Like, people will, the keyboard warriors, Robert. They handle themselves with class. They had a great season. They just came up short. It's brutal. If you don't know how it feels, it's because you've never been good enough to be in that situation of any kind. How could you possibly relate? They're going to carry that forever. It's just part of it. And I thank them for being willing to put themselves into the arena. The man in the arena that deals with the burden of all the potential outcomes, victory, defeat, success, humiliation. Like, we just don't know. And once it happens, it happens. And if you can't deal with that, you don't get in the arena, as so many don't. Like you look around, people, hey, you want to try this? No, don't want to try it. I'll tweet about it instead. There's a lot of that goes on. but it's not unique. It's part of competition. And it just, I feel for everyone involved. I feel for the people who came up short. Gainesville is a couple of months away. And the only way to get back out there is to get back out there. I don't know. Great interview by Ron. Final thoughts, Mopar Man. That's why you savor the wins, because they are more rare than losing. So much more rare. Great interview. Catch y'all tonight. Got to go to work. Thanks, Bug Barn. Yeah, we'll see you on the Ignition show, Bobby's Bug Barn. And for those that are wondering, just a quick tag, do I know what it's like to lose by a fraction, having given it all, and think about it for the rest of my life? And the answer is, yes, I do. Yes, I do. At a much smaller scale. Some might consider it insignificant compared to the conversation that we're having. But in 1991, I won the high school track championship. I went to the Race of Champions for Division II. I made the final round, and I gave up the win light by a couple of thou to someone from Orlando, and I lost. And I just wrapped the gas one time, on and off, in my dad's 18-second pickup truck, and the thing weighs 5,000 pounds. And I tried to cut down the finish line stripe against a much faster car, and I just whomped it one time, like that fast. And I gave up the stripe by 2 thou. And was it that? Was he getting there anyway? Like, I don't know. Was I past the finish line when I did it? Like, I don't know. But I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about that over the years, and let one get away. How my life would have been different if I was the 1991 Division II high school division champion, right? As opposed to runner-up. Yeah, nobody remembers that guy. It's okay. I'm still here. 1993, dating myself. I had to win the final race of the season to win the track championship in a tremendous come-from-behind victory. My opponent went out early. I got to the final round. His, people that were kind of supporting him were lining up to race me, and I beat them all, and I got to the final round. And if I won the final round, I'm the track champion. I broke out. The other side of that. This was much faster cars. This is a Super Pro. And I lost. And it was very annoying. Very annoying. Because all I had to do was win that round, right? But I didn't. And I lost. And so I felt that burn. I'm just at the local level. Me and my dad putting everything that we had personally into our own little racing operation and going to work for a whole season and trying and coming up short, finishing second. Now in 1995, I did come back and win it. And so, I made it right. Did get a championship. But when I talk about these feelings, it's not from a position of zero understanding. The scale and the scope of it, having it be for millions of dollars, that's different. But, I think about those things till right now. Like, would have been way cooler. Would have been much cooler if you did. Exactly, but it's the journey and how you run it that's more important, says Mopar Man. And yeah, that is absolutely right. Mopar Man, off to clean off the mud from the race. Yes, they're having a great conversation there. I've raced folks, raced for 20 years and have never won a race, and they keep running. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've raced amongst those folks as well. 20 years. Showing up at bracket races, showing up any kind of races, never won anything. But they love it. To be able to be the man in the arena with all your eyes focused on what you do, with a chance to define yourself, that's what it's all about. And you do what you can do as best as you can do it. And that's why I joke about or reference certainly the racing gods all the time. The racing gods. Who are they? Whatever it is that truly separates that 1/10,000th of a second race win. The racing gods didn't want Tony Stewart to win his first race. A couple of 10,000ths of a second, 1 inch on a track at 280 miles an hour. What was the reason? Like, you don't know. It's math. It's cosmic. There's no way to really know. You just go out there and you do everything you can and put everything you got into it. You do it, you enjoy it, you live it, and the results will handle themselves. Joe, I am that guy. 20 years, 3 wins. Yeah, but you're only as good as your last one, Ant Dog. And that was just the other day. So take solace in that. All right, guys, we're going to do an ignition show. We have Reinhart later on in the week as well. And then it's off to PRI. So please share the show, subscribe, click the bell, share with your friends. Go recruit some new listeners. WFO. Thanks, Ron. Ron Capps, world champion.